And to get us some perspective, Paul Sarasic is joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's a professor of politics and international relations at Youngstown State University in Ohio, and also an adjunct fellow at the Hudson Institute. Professor, good to see you. Thanks for waiting patiently.
Good to be here.
You know, just ahead of the interview, I spoke to a political analyst from Philadelphia, and he had said something very interesting, that where we stand right now in the campaign, that's less than 20 days from the US election date, people are still getting to know Kamala Harris. I want to ask you this, do you agree with that assessment? And also, after this interview, do you think the voters actually know Kamala Harris?
Well, I do think they're getting to know her, but you know, one of the problems with being vice president and running for president, and others have had this problem, you know, Al Gore back in 2000 had the same problem, is that when you're vice president, you don't really have, you know, all the power. You really don't have very much power at all under our Constitution. You know, you get to break ties in the Senate. So although we know the president, we don't always know the vice president that well. And when Kamala Harris ran for president in 2020, she didn't really stay in the race very long. She didn't last very long. So she didn't get voters didn't get a chance to know who she was. Also, you know, she wasn't in the primary this time. It was President Joe Biden, who at that time was running for re-election. And he's the one that stood before the Democratic voters. Then he withdraws and she comes in kind of really at the last minute. So we've never really seen a situation like this. And yeah, I think, you know, she is pretty still sort of unknown to voters. She hasn't been quite defined yet. This choice to be on Fox News was very, very interesting. And I don't think it's a choice she would have made a few weeks ago when her campaign was doing better. What this seems to symbolize is that, you know, she kind of thinks her campaign is in trouble. So she's going on, you know, conservative media in the United States, a place that she knows is going to be hostile, to try to build up, you know, her credibility, build up information about her for voters.
Right. So if Kamala Harris is going to Fox News, Donald Trump is also going to uncharted territories. We just brought a report how he's, in a way, wooing the black voters and the Latinos and the women. In fact, I have a poll by New York Times and Siena College that actually suggests that Trump has the support of black and Latino voters much more than any Republican nominee since the year 1964, Professor. So I want to ask you, why do we see a drop in Kamala Harris's support when it comes to these two sections of American society, and why is there a rise when it comes to Donald Trump?
Well, something very fascinating is going on in U.S. politics, and it's been going on for really the past 8 years. You know, political scientists argue about this a little bit, but I feel pretty strongly that what we're going through is a political realignment. And we haven't had a realignment in the United States since the late 1920s, you know, early 1930s. So it's been a long time. And what we mean by realignment is that different groups are moving around between the parties. And what we saw in 2016 was white working class voters who had traditionally been Democrats, in part because the Democratic Party had supported labor, and these were union members. But they came over in droves to the Republican Party in 2016, but it was mainly white working class voters. Now what we're seeing are working class voters, and we define that as voters without a college degree, that non-white working class voters are now starting to move into the Republican Party. So this is really, really a change, and it makes the election hard to predict, actually, because we don't know who's going to vote for who this time. And it really is, you know, a stunning change in U.S. politics.
Political realignment, Professor, I have to say you've put it perfectly. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us your insights. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.